Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Chats with Colleen, and I'm Colleen. I'm your host today of this podcast. And today, my guest is Ginny Adkins, better known as Ginny Buys Houses. She's a realtor, a group leader for a real estate club. She's also an Airbnb superhost, business owner for a pool company. She's a wife and a mother, and I'm sure I've left out many of other things about her, which she will elaborate on in our meeting. But we are here to talk about her and what it's like being a woman in the real estate field and just being in the real estate field altogether and how she combats it in this crazy market. So that will be joining us in a little bit here. And also, we just want to talk about some safety tips as we navigate through the hot summer hurricane season that is upon us. Since it is so hot outside, we want to remind everybody to stay hydrated, drink water throughout the day. It only takes a little bit to get you dehydrated here. So make sure you're staying hydrated, you're staying inside during the super hot times. If you have to be outside, keep water with you and always wear sunscreen. The sun is extremely hot here, and it only takes a couple minutes to get a sunburn. So that's a little tip. Hurricane season is here. We already have had one storm since my last podcast, and it luckily wasn't as bad as it could have been, but I know it did affect many people. People experience power loss, they experience rising water. So it's a time to be just planning ahead of time. These things come up pretty quickly, and we never really know what to expect. This one, I remember coming in to work, and within a couple minutes, the insurance carriers that I write with stopped writing. Some were giving us warning, and some weren't. So that just shows you how fast. And I wasn't really prepared. I had water and things at home, but if the storm really did hit here hard, I really wouldn't have been prepared. So it's just planning ahead, keeping water on hand, keeping flashlights, candles, any food that you could eat that would not spoil, and just making sure you're ready, with your pills. If you take any prescription medication, you're allowed to get those 2 weeks in advance, so you're ready and prepared. Those are some simple tips. Remember, join our podcast, like and share. Contact us if you would like to join us and be a guest. We're looking for guests, all capacities. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today with Chats with Colleen. I am here with Ginny Adkins, who is an investor, a realtor, a home stager, and you're probably a lot of other things. Did I leave anything off? And a wife and a mother, more importantly. But did I leave anything else off?
I'm also a short and mid-term rental host.
Oh.
Yeah, I have rental properties that I host. And as a matter of fact, I was just looking at my phone with my client that just checked into one of my Airbnbs.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Gosh, you can do that on the go. I guess everything's digital, so you can see what's going on. Mm-hmm. But you don't have cameras, right, to see what they're in?
I do have cameras on the outside of the house, definitely, because you want to know, first of all, did they make it? Did they get in? And I don't usually check. They usually let me know that they're in, but I always check, especially when the house isn't occupied, what's going on.
To make sure, yeah, obviously, because we live in Florida. Mm-hmm. So, how long have you been in real estate, and how did you get into it?
I got into real estate in 2015. I had been working for a church for on and off 20 years.
Nice. And
the church was growing a lot and young people coming in, and I just thought, you know what, I'm mid-40s. If I'm ever going to make a change, now's the time, because I had been managing a multi-site church. Oh. And I'd always had an interest in real estate because I had my design background and staging. So I'd been building all these big stages for the church and managing events, decorating for everything. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go out and start my interior design business. And so I left to go do that and quickly realized, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to build a business. I don't know, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I got hooked into one of those weekend seminars with real estate. I joined a company called Fortune Builders, and I bought the program, the boat, the Mercedes, all the things, right?
Right,
so you're
everything.
Like inner circle. Yeah, spent way too much money. But the education was really, honestly, very good. And I got into that, started flipping houses. So it took me, 10 months to find my first house.
Right.
And as a newbie, and a partner that was a newbie who, anyway, that's another whole story.
Oh, God.
Another time. Getting into one, using hard money, overpaying, under budgeting.
Oh.
On my very first deal, I think it took 12 months and a week.
Oh, wow.
We went over budget, probably almost twice as much, and lost a ton of money.
Oh.
Because in that time, I had formed a partnership, an LLC together, and did everything wrong. And so getting out of that took us years.
I bet.
Because when you go over budget and you start using your credit cards and everything,
Oh,
in your
yeah.
bank,
And that just adds up.
yeah.
Over time.
It
It's
took
not.
a ton of time, and it was just a huge lesson right out of the gate, though. And so I almost walked away from real estate altogether. And during that time, I was also, so I'd quit my job. And now I'm losing money on this flip.
And you're going in debt.
And I'm going in debt. And so my husband was like, guess what you're going to do? He's like, you're going to help me with the pool business.
Oh, my gosh.
So, and we started the pool business because during the last crash, he lost his job. We ended up losing our house on a short sale.
Oh, wow.
And then in the interim, him trying to find work started this pool business. So it was just kind of this, it took a year for him to get replaced with a new company.
Right.
So it's summertime. It's 100 degrees out.
Oh.
And yours truly is cleaning pools. And I kid you not, I'm at church, and I go to church with my friend Greg, and I find out he's an investor. And I'm like, what? How did he never tell me?
After all
he's
this
been
time?
raising my kids in Sunday school, and he didn't tell me anything. So I'm like, hey, why didn't you tell me? He's like, oh, I didn't know you were interested. Do you want to go to these things? So he started inviting me to these events, like with New View and the real estate guys. And what's funny is that's when I met your dad doing insurance. He gave a presentation at one of these events. And
I remember those.
so I started going to different events as his guest, and I kept doing the pools, and I kept trying to find business to do my staging and design. And I had a couple of clients, but it wasn't enough for a regular income. And one day I'm literally sitting in the driveway at a pool, and Greg calls me. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing pools. Greg, don't talk to me about it. What do you want? He's like, you want to go to another event? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what else are you doing? I was like, did I not make myself clear? So he's like, well, I'm kind of getting busy, and I need some help. And Jane told me I should call you.
Oh.
And I was like, really? Yeah. When do you need me? He's like, well, when can you start? And I said, I will be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And that was it.
In
I called my
regular
husband.
clothes.
I said, I quit.
Not in pool
I'm
clothes.
done. I showed up the next morning, and I met Greg and Glenn at the New View office, and that's where it all started. So I got put in this environment where I wasn't working for the property management company. I wasn't working for the IRA company, but the two of those guys were investing. So I started writing all these contracts, and then Augie had a land trust company, and he needed office space. So he comes in, and he's sharing office space with us. So I get put in the mix of these three different types of
Guys, investors, knowledgeable people.
Yes. And so I learned a ton.
Oh, wow.
Augie would take me into his office and say, do you understand this, and he would literally get a chalkboard out and just start showing me stuff. And then I'd have these level 10 meetings with Greg and Glenn. And so we had this turnkey operation going. And then I started going with Greg to these turnkey providers around the country. So speaking at events and learning about what all these other operators around the country are doing. And some of the biggest names, the real estate guys, Kathy Fetke with Real Wealth Network, Keith Weinhold. I know he had a few others. So it was really fun. It was a really fun environment to be with. And then I got into the mastermind with Pact with Augie. And so it has just grown my network like huge.
Right.
You know, so in 2019, I kind of just decided, okay, I can do this. I got this. I've done enough flips with them. I started doing them on my own, and then I was ready to just get out on my own.
Gosh, that's a really great story. It seems like you learned a lot, and that doesn't seem like it's been that much time.
It really hasn't been very
Yeah,
long.
it's-
I'm total of 9 years.
Right. In 9 years, and you've grown so much, met so many people, and had so many experiences. So I feel like the beginning, when you thought you failed, you really didn't.
No.
I think a lot of people think they fail and they should be done, but no.
Failed forward. And you know, when I started working for Greg and Glenn, I didn't have my real estate license. They pushed me. They were like, you know what? You're writing all these offers. You should probably have your license. I said, yeah, probably.
Probably should.
And so they were like, 2 months. And I was like, 2 months? So I had to sign up for the class and
study
do it
it.
online and get it done. And it took me 3 months. So I got my license in 2017 in January. And then I want to say it was 2020, I became a broker. So, you know, I just got my broker's license thinking, I don't know what I want to do. But I really got into the retail side of it kind of after I left working with them as just the investor side, because I was doing a lot of turnkey for out-of-state investors. So I learned how to do pro formas and really find the niche that investors were looking for, which
At that
is
time.
such great experience as an agent,
Right.
you know, and learning, just having the investor background, you know, learning about wholesaling and subject to and all the creative strategies
wow.
that are out there really helps me as an agent protect my sellers and help my buyers,
Right.
depending on which side I'm
Which
on.
side you're working, but it helps
Yeah.
you be knowledgeable, because I feel like a lot of people always think, you know, real estate is easy. And they're going to make all this money. And I see them and I'm like, it's not easy. And most real estate agents, they don't practice in the job. Like they get their license and then they can't become successful because they're impatient. And I feel like sometimes, you know, like it's not a race. You can do the marathon, you can learn, meet people, network, and then maybe do that part-time and then go into it. So
I feel like anybody who got into real estate just in the last few years is living off of the spoon feeding we've had
dream.
for the last
Oh,
10 years,
yeah.
right? And now all of a sudden we're back to reality and it's hard. You know what I mean? You really have to show your value to your client or you're just not going to get the business, or you're really going to do a disservice to the person that you're working with because they need help. I'm telling you, people think they can go out and do this on their own. And if they're an educated buyer and they've done this several times, yeah, you can do it on your own. But for the majority of
the
people,
public, they don't know.
they do not know. There's so many things they don't know. Even on this lakefront listing I have right now, you know, I recognized a buyer when he came in and said he was going to represent himself. And I'm like, there's just something not right about this guy. I don't know what it is. But the minute he came back at me with the terms, I was like, oh, here we go. I said, you know, I don't think you guys should take this offer, and here's why. Number one, he's making it assignable. I said, this guy's an attorney. He's probably going to resell it to a client in California for a lot more money. He's trying to lowball you. He wants all these terms. Like his offer was like, I want everything in the whole house.
Oh, there
I
you
want all
go.
the furniture. I want all the stuff. And his offer was like $200,000 less than the listing.
Than what it should be.
I was like, this is kind of a joke. But it's happening. It's happening more and more.
Because people don't know, and they maybe feel like they watch the news and all this stuff with the changes in the real estate market. And I mean, I even have clients call me in insurance, and I'm like telling them stuff that I think their realtor should be telling them.
Yes.
Because I feel like a lot of people, their realtors don't know. They're just like, I'm just going to sell you the house. I'll just close, because they just want the check. But I'm like, I'm telling them, I'm explaining stuff, and I'm not even supposed to be explaining them this, you know. But it's kind of sad. So with that being said, what would you say is the most favorite part of your job?
You know, I have to say, there's a lot of really fun things about my
course.
job. What I love is being as educated as I am. Just like I was just talking about this buyer that came in. I'm like, oh, he thinks he's going to pull one over on me. Just wait.
Because it's not my first rodeo, honey.
Just
I
wait.
know what you're doing.
You know, I'm as professional as they come. But as soon as they come back to me, well, number one, I'm a woman.
It's difficult,
So
right?
Generally,
Anyways.
men disregard our education.
Of course.
So when they come at me, they're very lofty and wordy, and you know, they come at me like they're very innocent. And then I just listen and I take it all in, and then I give these long, drawn out explanations, and then they're like, "Oh,
I love that.
oh, she knows." So I like that part about helping people,
Right.
And I love helping people out of a tough situation, you know, because there's so many sellers and even buyers out there that they get into this with zero knowledge, you know, and you really need to advocate for them. And I take that really seriously because I've been there. You know, for me, it's personal because I know what it's like to lose my home.
Right.
I know what it's like to go through what we went through in the last crash
In a way.
and lose it. And just there's so many emotions that go with that. And having somebody that steps in and helps you in that situation, everybody deserves a good opportunity to get what they want.
Right.
You know?
It's true. And then in the '08, that happened to us too. You know, we had 3 houses and we lost them. And one was our own house. And I remember coming here because we moved here and somebody coming to my door with papers. And I'm like, I just got here. It's not in my name. I'm renting, but it was for another one. But, you know, they chase you down. And they were doing that at like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I know how that feels, but I also know like how you can recover and plan better because back then they were just lending money like crazy. I didn't even have any money in the bank, to be honest with you.
Ours was just because we had moved back from, you know, we were coming from Vancouver, Washington back to Florida.
Oh, wow.
And took a position, and then he got let go.
Oh.
So we were just part of that whole crash of
It
people
happened.
losing jobs.
People
and
lost
things like that.
jobs. The economy, prices went up for everything, kind of
Yeah.
like it is now. But now I think it's a little bit different, kind of the same and not. But yeah,
Well, and we got that notice at the door. I remember going, I don't even know what this is.
it was 85 pages.
I just was like, oh, okay. And then just the whole idea of it was just too much for me to handle. Could I have stayed in my house? Absolutely. I could have probably dragged it out for 10 years and probably could have recovered and kept the house. Could have. The idea that we couldn't pay our mortgage in full was more than I could stand. I was like, nope, we're going to sell it for whatever it's worth. We're going to get out of this. I just needed to be out from under the cloud.
Right.
And I can only imagine there's a lot of people feeling like that even right now.
I'm sure. And so we're going to follow it up with what is the least favorite part of your job? Probably that part.
Well, no, I mean, I love helping people. I think the least favorite part of my job is, honest to goodness, other agents.
I can see
there's
that.
so many bad ones right now, and I'm pretty thankful that a lot are leaving because when you don't know what you're doing and you don't have your client's best interest at heart, you should not be in this business. You know, and I kind of take it from the hospitality side of it too, being a landlord, that we're in this to work together. And so we're about to walk into just such a weird season in real estate where you're really relying on agents to be ethical. And I'm sure there's just going to be so much chaos, I think, coming. Relying on an agent to do their job, to show up, to give you all the information, to be honest, and, you know, is just the hardest thing.
I think so too. It's honesty. Communication, I think, is the root of all evil when people fail to communicate, and on both sides. And it may be having to give somebody information that they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. And so I think a lot of people skimp around that. But
It's hard, especially if something falls out of contract. When I have to go back and deliver to my seller that we're canceling, you know, they're canceling the contract.
Right. That's a big
always very
letdown.
hard.
I'm sure that's very hard for them. So with that being said, the NAR settlement, I've heard about it and I don't really feel like I understand it. Could you simplify it?
Yeah,
For the
I
general
just did a
public?
webinar on it.
Okay, good.
So I've been studying this for kind of since it came out. So the big gist of it is, in California, you had some sellers who filed suit against their agents because they believed they were not given an opportunity to negotiate the commissions, right? You had these agents that said, it's 6%, that's what it is, it's not negotiable, this is what the buyer's gonna make, this is what the seller's gonna make, and that's it, right? And so they filed suit, and they had attorneys with deep pockets, and they basically have been trying to do this for years, but they dragged it out, and NAR essentially, I don't want to say gave in, but they ran out of money to fight it, because it really didn't have the clout that it should have, you know?
Right.
So all that to say is we've come to a place where starting August 17th,
Okay.
no buyer's agent is going to be able to open a door for a client without having a buyer broker agreement. So forever we've been able to do that. And then if I write a contract, maybe you have them write an agreement, maybe you don't, but it's never been required. So today it is required to have a buyer broker agreement with an agent to show a property. Okay, so gone are the days where I've got 5 agents out looking for me. Now, can we do it per property? Yes. So we were looking at a paperwork nightmare. And when it comes to open houses, so think about a listing agent or any agent doing an open house.
Yeah, because the
Right.
people may just go in there themselves.
They can't.
They have to go with an
They
agent.
can't anymore, right? So there'll be a paper at the door that says, if you didn't come with your buyer broker agreement and your agent, you can't come into the open house, or
You have to sign up
you're
with the
going to
person
sign
there.
up with the person hosting the open house as representing you. So you can do it for that house. Not a big deal. Again, it's just a ton of paperwork. So
Oh.
the other thing that's happening is there will be no offers of compensation on the MLS. So today, when I list a house, I put on the MLS how much I am paying a buyer's agent to bring a buyer, whether it's 2.5%, 3%, or whatever it is, right? You've got a lot of those companies doing less. That's just going away. They're also encouraging it to be not on any website, although that was not part of the settlement. So you're going to have main websites like go to EXP, or you're going to go to KW or Colwell. Any of these brokerage websites are likely, I haven't seen it yet, are likely to have their own website with their own office listings that will show compensation, whether or not a seller's offering compensation.
Okay.
So that's one way. If there's nothing offered anywhere, a buyer's agent is going to have to call the listing agent and ask. So before I go show a house, I'm going to have to call the listing agent and say, hey, is your seller willing to offer compensation to me for my services? And if they say no, then I have to go back and say to my buyer,
If you want
who
to
I
see
had,
this house.
yeah, exactly. You and I have an agreement where you're paying me my commission for services rendered, right? We're agreeing to that. If I can get the seller to pay it, great. If they're not willing to pay it, then it's going to be your obligation. Now, can we go show the house and write it into your offer? We can. But you need to know that if you go under contract, it's going to be your responsibility to pay me. Now, what does that do? Currently, that pretty much knocks out first-time homebuyers.
Because they're
don't
already
have-
nickel and diming. I mean,
Right.
I'm not a first-time home buyer, but I would be having a hard time yanking out money out of my personal account to pay these 20% down and
20%
and then
down,
the closing
costs are somewhere around
and
15
commission.
grand right now.
Right.
Plus another 10, 12 grand, for
Commissions.
a buyer's agent commissions. Now, everybody thinks agents make a ton of money, but just to be clear, even if it's 10 or 12 grand, your agent is not making that amount.
Because you have to pay your time.
Broker, you have to pay your broker, whatever your split is. You
And
have
then
to pay your marketing and
your photography
education
and your gas.
Yep.
And your
staging,
insurance.
photography.
Right. All that
of
costs
the
money.
things, plus the number of hours that you put into a deal, right? Negotiating on your behalf. So there's so much more that goes into it.
Of course.
You know, I think we are just in for, you've got a lot of people saying, I'm so glad, I never thought we should be paying buyer's agents anyway. I'm like, I'm sorry, but your buyer's the one bringing the money to the deal.
So why should they not?
For the last 50 years, we've kind of based our house prices on the fact that commissions are coming out of that.
Correct.
Both a buyer and
I mean,
a seller.
I've sold several homes and I've always paid both commissions because I'm selling the house. And then it was always like if the person that sold it, you know, my listing agent, they got a larger percentage because they worked both sides. Like if they brought the person.
Well, I'll negotiate down actually if I'm representing both sides.
Right.
Now in the state of Florida, you're allowed to do that. In a lot of other states, you're not allowed dual representation. But here we can, as long as both sides agree.
Right.
You know, and let's just say I have a
but the
6%
buyer's the
listing.
one buying it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like I don't really think I agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel.
Well, currently there's nothing. So the VA has come out with something saying
Yeah,
they are willing to help, you know, pay the buyer's agent fees.
Okay, good.
There's been nothing out of FHA. What a lot of agents are doing right now is assuming they'll make an offer and then they'll raise the price above the amount of commission, right? And ask the seller to kick back that money. The problem with that is it has to appraise. It still has to appraise.
Right.
So if it doesn't, then what? Then we're in this negotiation again, which is true of anything, but you just have to price it right. You know, I think this is where listing agents are going to have to educate their sellers and say, okay, we're either have to offer it out of our list price, or we're going to have to know that coming into this, there's going to be not just 2 negotiations. There's possibly 3 going to happen throughout this transaction. 1 is going to be our inspection period. 2 is going to be the appraisal, and 3 is going to be how are we, compensating a buyer's agent, unless the listing agent becomes a dual agent. We will start seeing a lot more of that. We are going to see buyers going directly to the listing agent.
Correct. Probably.
You know? Or what I see a lot of investors do, which I think is smart, is do a flat fee listing so that you can offer buyer's compensation, offer more compensation to a buyer's agent so that you're going to get more showings. Because I think in the next year, you know, our market is doing okay here in Florida. We still have a lot of demand, but I'm seeing things really slow down, even in my listings.
Really?
You know, and every day my list of price reductions just keeps getting longer.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things are sitting on the market, and it's not
Longer.
a bad thing. It's just back to normal, and we've not seen it in years. So people are getting nervous. So you have sellers going, why isn't it selling? Oh, I need to drop my price. I'm like, you're priced right. It's just based on your motivation. Are you willing to wait?
Right.
So it really just kind of comes down to, where does a seller need to be? Do they need the money? Do they need to move right now? Can they let it wait and, wait it out? So,
because I think everybody's used to that. I got 80 offers in 2 days, and
Yeah.
which one do I pick? And they're all, backup offers. I feel like now it's not normal to be like that.
no. I mean, multiple offers
Is normal.
is normal if it's way under market,
Right.
Or in certain pockets, in a really, really hot neighborhood. But, it's getting few and far between now. It really is.
I don't even know what is the hot market in the Orlando area. Is
Well,
there
we
any?
still have Lake Nona,
Lake Nona's a good growing area.
downtown Winter Park.
Of course. Super expensive areas.
You still have really, nice areas. There's areas in Lake Mary. It depends really on the schools. What amenities does your neighborhood have?
Right.
Are you lakefront? What are you offering? And the biggest thing I see is your house staged and ready to sell so that somebody can walk in the door and picture themselves there? I think that's my biggest I think asset when I'm talking to a seller is like, you have to remove you from the house,
Right.
even if you live here.
Correct.
So that a buyer can come in and not see you, because if they see you, they feel like a guest in your house and they cannot picture themselves there and their family.
I think that's a good, because my dad was selling a house and I'm like, you need to be out of here. And the realtors were like, it was better when he wasn't like living there, or, my mom, who recently passed away, because it was too personal, because people came in and they were like, oh, why is there a wheelchair? Why is this? Is someone sick? And then they started asking questions, and then it made them not comfortable.
Yes.
And that's what I tried to tell my dad, but he's like, oh, there's a million, everybody's going to buy it today. It took 8 months to sell it.
Yeah.
But because when he finally listened to them, I'm like, listen to the realtors, they know. But I had to tell the realtors, it's okay, just let him do what he wants.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to know that you're going to sit for a while.
Right.
I vacant is better, but not empty.
Yeah, you want to have stuff in there. So you
even light staging. So like with this listing I have coming up, they just moved out last weekend. We're doing an estate sale there and then clearing the house. And then I'm going to come in with light staging, rugs and plants and towels and, things in the kitchen. I don't have to have furniture, but I do have to place things in a way where a buyer can come in and go, oh, that's where I should put the bed.
It makes it look
That's
warm.
where I should put the couch. That's where I should put my desk. Those kind of things. As long as people can see and picture, which I love, what you can see on MLS now is virtual staging.
I like the virtual stuff.
Virtual staging is good, but you still have to have something in person when somebody walks a property.
When they come there, because if it's totally bare,
they can't.
It may not look as big, or it may look smaller, or just not personable.
People
for
are
them.
not as visual as we would like them to be.
Oh yeah, most people they want, and they're demanding, like you said.
It depends on the price point. Yeah, some people are like, I just need to afford it. I just need to get in.
Of course, I feel those new home buyers with like the prices and the payments. And right now, what is the average price of a home?
It's about $430.
That's what I heard.
For median.
Wow.
But that's pretty much a first-time home buyer, unless you're lower income. So I'm talking about in middle income neighborhoods.
Right.
A smaller starter home, 1,600 square feet.
Is in that range. Wow.
Is in that range.
That's high. And because and so if people are buying 200,000, they're having to go way out or buying a much smaller home.
Right. They're generally buying a smaller home if they need to be in town. You can get more, but I'm telling you, even the sprawl is coming up in price.
Oh, yeah.
It really is everywhere. I have been pretty surprised. I'm like thinking, because, as an investor, I'm out looking for deals. I was like,
there are none.
I just don't want to spend $300 and then have to put $200 into it as a fixer-upper. It's not where I'm at. I'm like, I can't make that cash flow.
No.
So that's where, our sales have really slowed down. Even investors have slowed down because they can't make the numbers work. Right.
They got to work.
Unless you're adding value, which, the pad split model, does it work? Yes. You got to be careful on where you're doing that.
Yeah, you got to be careful in all aspects and where you're doing it and like what type of insurance you have for it. I know they do one lease because I had a client call me yesterday and ask about the insurance, and I've done pad splits for years, but they're called rooming houses.
Yes.
And I know people are like, no, because they don't serve food. No, we know that, but they're sharing, you're renting a room in the same home, and then they may share a bathroom, and they're going to share the kitchen possibility. They have their own shelf and things like that, but they're still sharing the area. So they have contact with each other.
Right.
And so, when you have contact with each other, you don't really know anybody. There can be conflicts. There can be, arguments and things like that. And so when you have that, even if they have one lease, I worry about one lease when you have a regular home policy. And then,
so how are you doing that insurance?
It's a commercial policy.
Okay.
So I write them all the time. It's a commercial, and then it's rated on the number of rooms that they have.
Okay. How much more expensive is that?
It's a little bit more. I would base it similar to the Airbnb prices. Okay. It's higher. So if you figure it that way, it's higher, but the rents are higher. But I would rather you pay higher for your insurance. And then if somebody gets, I've had one where they had cameras in the common areas, and they saw a guy waiting for him, and they came and he stepped stabbed him in the neck, in that like jugular vein, I think. But luckily he survived, and the guy that did it was charged with like attempted murder, and he's still in prison. But and luckily they haven't sued, but he did have the correct type of insurance. But if he didn't, you know, they could say, oh no, you were renting rooms. It's not, you know, the policies, the applications are specified. They'll allow 2 leases, but I know the pad split model does one so
master lease,
it's
and then
one
everybody's
master
kind
lease.
of a membership.
And they have a membership. So it's still a commercial exposure. And I don't know what the company provides as far as insurance.
They don't.
So I would be, be leery to get, you know, just keep the regular insurance that you have, just thinking you have that one lease, because if it's a gray area, which that is, the insurance company is probably going to deny a claim if you didn't have the correct type of insurance.
Right. So that's good to know, though, that you can get the right insurance, because you're definitely not zoned properly. Although I will say, I feel like in the next couple years, we're going to see some zoning changes.
I'm sure.
Just because of the sheer need of housing.
There's not affordable housing.
People can't afford it.
And they're building up apartments and condos and townhomes wherever.
But they're luxury. Wherever
they have space. Oh, I know. They're building luxury ones in front of an area over here that's not super nice, across from the Wawa, and they're like $450,000.
Right.
And it's gated, but I'm like, look at, because they don't have any space to put anything. So I think they're going to need to get more apartments. You know, pad splits is a great alternative because it's affordable for people that are working that can't afford to pay $2,000 a month to rent an apartment. ADUs, people putting additional living units within their house, their lots.
I totally want to do it in my backyard. I really want to put an ADU in my backyard.
I want to put 2.
I just got to check, you know, you got to check your zoning. I don't have an HOA, but I got to look at what the city of Longwood, you know, and Seminole County. So it was kind of a mix of the two, which is always a good thing to note if you're an investor, right? When you're getting out there and you're trying to find deals, you better know whatever it is you're doing and checking both the city and the county rules.
Right.
Because I ran into that on my Castleberry house. You know, I thought I could do everything at Seminole County, no big deal. And then when it came to the city of Castleberry, they're like, no. I was like, what?
Yeah, there's so many municipalities and stuff, and they all have their own rules. And I think that's why you have to know. That's why it helps to have a qualified realtor who's willing to look at all those rules and explain everything to you, the pros and cons. So, what would be your advice to a new real estate agent coming into the game now?
You know, I would tell most real estate agents to really get a mentor that's an investor, because what they're walking into today, if they do it right, will set them up for a lifetime, you know, of success. But I think really understanding both the retail side and the investor side is so important. Like, for all the reasons I've already said, you know, how to protect your buyers and your sellers. And, you know, I've walked 1,000 properties. You know what I mean? I know what I'm looking at. I know how to educate people as I'm walking a property, or a seller when they're selling the property, what I think a buyer is going to do when they're coming in, what I think the inspection's going to say. Do they want to handle it before we put it on the market? Do they want to wait and see? You know, and give them choices.
Right.
You want to give people choices. But education, it's not just about getting your license. It's understanding contracts. It's understanding the title process. It's understanding what your client needs and what they're going to walk into. If you can educate somebody on what they're going to walk into or walk away from, or how much money they're going to make at the end of the day, you're setting yourself up for success.
Right. It's true. Education never stops, and it's more than just a license, as you say. That's the easy part.
The license is the easy part. And there's a lot of retail agents that don't have it. They just don't have the education. And it's really unfortunate, because they're going to really have a tough time in the next few years. Especially, like, I'll say a lot of the offers that are coming in on my listings are all investors. Will they do seller financing? Will they do subject to? Will they do this? Will they I look at that? And most of the time it's no.
Right.
You have to be a certain type of seller, either an investor that understands it and knows how to do the right paperwork to protect themselves.
Right.
Or they're just people say no to the things they don't understand.
Oh, I know. I say that all the time.
They
It's
always
easy.
say no.
It's just the easy way. No.
Yeah.
And I run into that in my job. The insurance companies say no. I'm like, well, are you going to listen? No, we don't do that. And I'm like, okay, because why? And you're trying to explain to them, this is it. And it's just no. And it's like the worst word ever sometimes. Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's great. No.
No, exactly. It depends who you're saying it to.
Exactly.
So where do you think the industry is going? I know you mentioned a lot of it, but in the next 6 months, do you see
Wow.
it getting more stable?
No.
No.
You know what? I think people have been, sitting on the fence for a couple years now thinking we're going into a recession. I don't think we're going into a recession. Our housing is way too strong for that, and our jobs are still way too strong for that. So I don't think we're going to see a recession. Do I think we're going to see a slowdown? Yes. Do I think people are going to continue to have challenges buying property? Yes. I think for a lot of reasons, I think that the powers that be would like us to become a renter nation.
Oh, someone else told me that
and
yesterday.
Remove
They want to own
housing,
all the
ownership
homes.
altogether. It's all about control. Can they control us? Yes. If they move us to digital currency, they can control us. If they can control how we rent and what our prices are, all of those things factor into. And I'm starting to see sellers saying, I will not sell to a company. I will only sell to an owner occupant. And kudos to them. Am I the company that's trying to buy the house and renovate it? Yes. So I
So you don't want to hear that. Yeah.
Do I not like to hear it? But I will go and sit with a seller and tell them exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying, I'm not this big company.
I'm a small business.
Trying to make this house available to a homeowner that doesn't know how to fix things. And, I'm making it ready for a family. I'm not here to,
I'm not Chase Bank or no offense, but
no, I'm not a big hedge fund.
Right.
Right. I just think we're going to see a lot more rent by the room. I think we're going to see a lot more zoning changes. And I'm an advocate for that because I think it's needed.
Right.
I think shared housing is a huge need, especially here in Central Florida.
Especially here in Central Florida for the younger people, for anybody, and then the elderly people. I always worry.
Elderly is such a huge need right now. There's so much, people living under the bridge.
I see so many more. I've seen so many more homeless people on the roads and in like nice areas than I've ever seen before.
And I think rents, even though they've slowed down, I think they're still going to go up.
I think they are because all the other stuff behind it goes up.
When my taxes and my insurance go
so
up.
your taxes, your insurance, and then the cost of
Escrow.
their repairs, and then all for apartment complex, they got to pay, they have to hire more people or whatever to keep up the properties or their salary. I mean, it's just all those little things that add up to the bottom, like the end.
Yeah.
Which is the consumer.
Inflation is such a huge part of that, and even though they say they have a handle on inflation, I think it's skewed numbers. I do. I
can't even see how.
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
It's pretty bad now. And then, because a couple weeks ago, or months ago, my son was here, and I was telling him the average the average salary for like a man living, I don't know why it always has to be a man, but a man living in the Orlando area, just to live a decent, like normal, comfortable life is $101,000.
Yes.
$400 or something.
Somebody needs to make $100,000 to buy a $300,000 house. A $300,000 house is below the median.
They can't
price
even,
home.
And they're going to be scraping by to make that payment.
Exactly. I mean, when you're talking, it's over $2,000 a month for a mortgage just on a $300,000 house,
which isn't the average price of a house.
It's not the average price of the house, which just, like I said, it's pushing back the affordability here. It has not kept up with the rate of inflation. The salaries have not kept up. So you have to have 2-income family, that's well over $100,000 to buy a median priced income home.
Right. Like you said, I don't think that's going to get better. So that's why the shared living and all those things are going to come into play, and the AUD, putting up a house in the back of your house for other people.
And when you have people that stop selling because they can't afford to replace it, which is kind of where we're at right now. Things are flat,
Right.
you know, because they cannot replace that mortgage. You know, I've had tons of clients that are like, we're just going to have to wait because they thought, well, I want the same mortgage. I'm like,
It's not
you
gonna
don't
happen.
understand. Your mortgage is going to be twice as much by moving, even a lateral move. Your mortgage will be twice as much as it is today. So it's just really hard unless they end up with a huge amount of equity where they can pay it down.
Yes.
You
But
know,
even
but
still,
even
it's
then-
still going to be more.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
still gonna
that's
be
the
more.
position I'm in. So
Yeah.
I'm just
I
living.
know, aren't we all?
I'm just living in this, big house that I don't have time to clean because it's what's affordable for me.
Well, you know, there's this thing called pad split.
Yeah, I
You could rent
know.
your rooms out.
That's what I was thinking. I can rent out like 10 of them up here.
You know, rent out some of your
It's
rooms.
just probably not acceptable by the HOA, but it's all right.
right.
But my
yeah.
driveway's big enough. I was thinking about the AUD. I have enough parking for the people. So
It'll
I
be
could,
interesting when these zoning changes happen
Yeah.
because they're going to start forcing HOAs to change their rules too.
they need to come over here. These
They
people are
are.
crazy.
They're
But I'm in the very front, so I don't really get onto that riffraff back
something
there.
about the transparency of the rules and the fees of
Oh.
an HOA.
Okay.
There was a new rule that just came out, and I wish I could just remember it right now, but it's very recent. They have to have transparency on the HOA fees. So buyers can come in and know what they're walking into. Because I've had, buyers that come in and then they go, oh, no, there's a capital improvement you have to pay at closing. That wasn't,
It doesn't disclose.
right, it wasn't disclosed. And honestly, the seller didn't even know.
Right.
It was just new changes.
They change stuff all the time. I can see that big with condos because the condo fees are horrendous.
Yes, they are because they have the requirement. I was just
Like a
talking to
reserve.
somebody I sold a house to or a condo to on the beach in Daytona.
Oh.
I asked him what's going on there, and he said they had their feasibility and reserve studies and all the stuff required and were told they were in good shape and have enough reserves to cover, unlike most associations. They had a $27,000 special assessment for the hurricane deductible, the beach walkway, and their HOA is now 4 times as much as it was when
wow.
they bought it. So they're making it just
A lot of them by the
unaffordable.
beach, they have to rebuild up to like the foundations and do
Yes,
certain
they're still
things.
rebuilding the pools
And they're
the
rebuilding,
seawalls.
and then the ones that didn't get damaged, they're going back and being seen by the age and making them redo those improvements to prevent something from happening. And then
Yes.
it all gets passed over to the unit owners.
Well, it all comes to that,
The
the condo
charges.
in Miami that collapsed.
Oh, the Surfside. That was
Yeah.
a nightmare.
It is. I mean, you want to protect people, but at the cost, they're just making it unaffordable. You're probably going to see more condos go under, give it back to the bank. They're giving it away like a timeshare, right? People were giving away their timeshares because they can't get out of it.
Right. They're like, I don't care what happens to my credit. Just take this thing back.
Exactly.
Well, that would
That's
be
what
interesting if the condos get turned over to the bank. I wonder if they would,
Well, the banks are going to be practically giving them away too, because
that'd be good.
when we
for
had
investors, maybe.
all of
depending.
these foreclosures, it was costing a bank somewhere around $55,000 a property to turn it over.
Oh, yeah.
Plus the responsibility of keeping up with the HOA fees and the lawn
Changing the
care
locks and
all
everything.
of that. So it's the banks really don't want them.
Yeah, they get your house back, and eventually maybe they'll make a profit, but they don't want it back because it's a upkeep for them.
Right.
They don't want them back, but that's what people
We're
are
not
saying.
going to have a surge of foreclosures
Like,
coming. We're
I know
just not.
people are saying, oh, they want my house because my interest is low. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. They want it because they can resell it at a higher interest rate. I'm like,
Right.
It's money, but then they don't want it. They have to go through the process, and then you're probably not going to leave the house on time. But you bring up an interesting fact when you say about the condos, maybe they'll be turned back into apartments, and then that will create ways for
Well,
people to buy apartment buildings.
What I see is hotels and investors coming in to buy up condo buildings to turn them into vacation homes,
Vacation rentals.
vacation rentals, similar, it's a hospitality business, right? Because, like me, I'm like, man, would I love to find like a 10 or 12 unit hotel
Something
and turn it
manageable.
into a boutique hotel and with a mix of short-term, mid-term, and long-term, over by the beach? Yeah,
Nice. Who
that would
wouldn't?
cash flow great. It just has to pencil out. It just has to pencil out. And people don't care how. You know, you're starting to see office buildings being converted. Office is probably the worst real estate asset right now.
Right.
Because there's so many of them vacant,
Right.
you know, with this work from home, and there's starting to force people back into the office. I mean, we are 4 years later.
Yeah.
My husband's office is just now 4 years later, requiring everybody.
Oh, and
to
the
be back
people
in
are
the
not
office.
happy.
Oh no, because they moved cross country.
Right.
They moved cross country, and now they're like
They were in their RVs
no, so they're
working.
quitting their jobs, and so we have the quiet quitting going on, you know,
Oh.
and all of that. And so you're starting to see investors buying up office buildings to convert to housing.
Oh, wow.
Malls being converted. I think the best idea out there, and I would love to do it. Like if I had a huge project, I would love to turn a mall into senior living.
Oh my God, that would
Can
be
you imagine,
amazing.
right? Convert all these little tiny stores into 1 or 2 bedroom houses, apartments. They can walk. They can get their exercise.
Yes.
They can have their doctor's office and their dentist
And they can
their
have the
food
food
court
court.
and
They would be
all of
so
the little
happy.
entertainment. They could still have the movie theater there. They could have all the things that they need inside a controlled environment where they can
And they're
still
safe.
get out and be social.
And they can have alarms on there so they
Yes.
don't. That's a really good idea.
I have thought about that for years. And I know of, there's a big investor here in Orlando that actually owns one of the malls. I won't say which because it's not done yet. That has been trying to get this model going. But then COVID hit. And so everything kind of stopped. So I don't know where that's at because you could even do offsite things within the parking lot.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So,
You have all
there's
this
so
parking.
much.
You could still put lots of little things for
They could
senior
put-
living in there.
Right. They could put other, like you said, I like how you say the doctor's office, the like all that
Yes.
stuff, because those
A
people,
little urgent clinic. You could put a hospital inside there.
they
you
could
know?
put the physical therapy area in there because there's not, yeah.
And here in Florida, I mean, it's just such a huge
It's
industry.
it's gonna be needed more. That's
more
the thing.
and more.
There's
right?
not enough.
Our boomers are just so they're what? They're 70s in their 70s and 80s now. Mm-hmm. You know, huge population of it. You know,
Gosh, that's a really great idea. Because then where are they all going to go? There's only so much, and then that could create a lot more jobs and
well,
stuff.
and they
too.
can't afford it either.
They can't afford
They
it.
cannot afford it on what. When I sit here and look at even assisted living, is anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 a month. A month.
It's true.
That's crazy. And that's just for basic.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help somebody who's in a wheelchair right now.
Mm-hmm.
She's not even a retirement age, but she needs to go into assisted living. And to find something that she can afford is nearly impossible.
I bet.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And I feel so bad for her because she doesn't have any family here. She has one son in California. So stuck in a wheelchair in her house. She has to even be home during the showings. You know, we're just trying to get enough money out of her house so that she has enough for a down payment on an assisted living.
Because that's so much money, and then the insurance doesn't really help, and then the Social Security, if she's not even eligible for it, is not. It's pennies.
We as investors could really do well if we could help the seniors.
Right.
If we could do it right.
That's a good topic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Jenny, you have really provided really great information and value, not only to me, but I know the other people listening. So I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you.
So thank you. And then I want to have you back if we could talk more in depth about senior housing.
Sure.
Because I
I'd
feel
love
like
that.
I'm not that far away from it. I mean, I have 20 years, but I have to start planning. But still, I mean, it could happen in any day that anybody could need, like, help.
This is definitely another topic because I know I told you about a lady that has a program. So
And I want to talk about that program too,
sure.
because I'm really interested in helping people, especially women and children. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for
You can
your
reach
time.
out to me, Ginny at GinnyAdkinsRealEstate.com. And I also run a meetup for women once a
Invest Her.
month, the Invest Her Community Orlando. So look for us on Facebook or find me on Facebook. I'd love it.
Thanks Thanks so much for listening and joining us. If you haven't already, please share, subscribe, and like our episodes and our podcast. Also, leave a review. It will be so helpful to us, and we would so appreciate it. Also, if you want to join us at any time, we're open to any guests joining us in person and on Zoom. We post and record episodes bi-weekly, so that's twice a month. Also, they're posted on our socials, which is Facebook, Secured Insurance Group, Instagram, Colleen Insurance Lady. This podcast was hosted by myself, Miss Colleen Pacheco, and recorded and produced and edited by Sean Spazzato. Our podcast cover art was designed and created by Norma Pacheco, and our intro and outro music is created by Lounge Bar by Geronic. Goodbye.